How to become an agile learner. That is the topic of this week's edition of Impactful Teamwork. So, welcome back. Delighted to have you here. And I'm Julia Felton, and I'm your host and guide as we delve into the topic of teamwork. But specifically today, I wanted to talk about having a beginner's mindset and our ability to actually become an agile learner. And it's a topic we've not really delved into on the podcast before, but I think is so important, particularly given the environment that we're in today. The advent of AI is changing everything. The skills that we require team members to have today may well be obsolete in 2 to 3 years' time, maybe even quicker, who knows? But what does that mean? It means that it's becoming increasingly difficult to hire for skill set because those skills might no longer be required in the future. However, what we do need to think about is how do we hire people and have team members with a really agile mindset and that are able to easily adapt and learn new ways of operating and doing work in order to adapt to the exponential change that is happening in the world around us. So, what is learning agility? Because that is really the topic that we're going to talk about. And this has been inspired by an article in the Harvard Business Review by Helen Tupper and Sarah Ellis, who describe learning agility as the skill of learning from experience so you can succeed in new situations. It means knowing what to do when you haven't done something before. And it's increasingly important in the environment in which we live. And so agile learners can approach the uncertainty and change in what's happening in their roles and careers with confidence, knowing that their insights and talents will help them succeed in new situations. And actually, research has shown that learning agility is a strong indicator of an individual's ability to succeed and therefore make a positive contribution to the organization. And therefore, agile learners become magnets for new opportunities, learning, and possibility within the organization. You're more likely to be offered a promotion or an opportunity to go and work in another team if you can demonstrate you've got this ability to be very agile in your learning. And in fact, as a result of the environment that we're working in today, learning agility is a really sought after skill that enables us to create a flexible, mobile, and resilient workforce. And the great thing about this agile learning, and when our team members have this in place, it means that we can move team members between different parts of the organization where we can really leverage their talents to the full. And therefore, team members can make more of a contribution and they're going to feel more engaged and motivated. So, what are the three foundations of an agile learning skill set? Well, there's three building blocks that you might want to think about. And the first of those is about navigating newness. So, some people actually really love new things, and other people are like, unless I've got a playbook and a manual about how to do it, I feel a little bit uncertain. Really be aware of how you approach doing a new task. Do you just jump in not knowing everything, or are you somebody who needs to know everything before you do it? And my invitation to you is, if you're the latter, try and cultivate some of your skills about not needing to know everything in order to try something new, because often we don't know everything that's going to happen. The second building block is about understanding others. So what the research has found is that agile learners are adept at empathizing and anticipating different perspectives. So they're the type of people that can put themselves in other people's shoes. They can connect the dots and resolve problems. And also they can see the bigger picture. So rather than waiting to be told about different points of view or something that doesn't work, they seek out sometimes these dissenting opinions so that they can get a more holistic view about what's going on and find a new approach. The other thing is that agile leaders are very self-aware. And we've been talking on last week's podcast about self-awareness. But what they really understand is the impact or that ripple effect that they make on other people and how they can improve that. And they're confident enough to ask for support as and when they need it so that they can be their best. And what we've discovered is agile learners see learning as a constant challenge or a constant opportunity that they fully embrace. And they're always looking for how could they learn new things from new people, new places, new experiences. They're like a continual sponge for information. And that's a great thing, having this mindset of continual learning, this beginner's mindset, as Amy Edmondson talks about, having a beginner's versus a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset tends to assume that we know it all. And I think the one thing we can be sure of in today's environment, none of us know it all. So I'd really encourage you to cultivate that beginner's mindset, that sense of curiosity, coming to everything with a blank canvas and being a sponge just to learn new things. So a couple of questions for you to reflect on are things like, how often do you work on something new? Where have you spent your time in the courage zone? When people often come to my equine leadership retreats, that's an opportunity for people to step outside of their comfort zone and into the courage zone. They're coming to do something they often have no idea what it's about, how it's going to pan out. But I think this is such a good metaphor for life and business today, where actually we delude ourselves that we're in that kind of comfort zone, but actually things are changing so rapidly that often we spend more and more of our time in the courage zone where we're doing things that are outside of our norm. You might also want to reflect on how do you want to help to understand other people? How many conversations can you have with other people? How can we get into their shoes to understand what's going on for them? But another thought might be to think about, how do you ask for help? As I'm talking about this, I'm reflecting on an equine leadership day that I ran yesterday. Very interesting. Somebody was having some challenges actually to lead the horse. The horse was standing still, didn't want to move, and the client was getting a little bit frustrated. And what was interesting was she didn't actually ask for help, but her teammates turned around and said, "Would you like some help?" And I thought that was really powerful, was the observation of her team members that she was struggling, that she needed some help, and they stepped up to offer. But also interesting that the client themselves in that moment, the one who was leading the horse, didn't feel that they could ask for help. And I see this a lot in organizations, people feeling that we need to know it all. And actually, as I've talked a lot about, there's no way you can know it all. So it's fine to ask for help within the organization. And actually, that can be very powerful. Let's just think about, how do we increase our learning agility and what are some strategies that we can use? Because in terms of the navigating the newness, let's be honest, our brains prefer to play it safe, keep things as they are. They like familiarity and they don't like situations that feel unfamiliar. We rely on what we know as a source of value rather than how can we use our knowledge to best effect in the organization. We need to get better at understanding how we can transfer our knowledge from one situation to another within the organization, because that's really powerful. It helps us make more of an impact on more people, on more facets of the organization, but also more importantly, it's more rewarding for us when we can see what we do and how it has an impact on the organization. So how practically could a team member do this within the organization? It might be just covering or subbing for somebody who's on holiday, covering their role and just seeing how you get on. Or it could be that you actually step up and volunteer to lead a new project. something that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, that pushes you out of your comfort zone. Certainly, the people that came to my Unbridled Success experience yesterday, many of them felt outside of their comfort zone. While some people had worked with horses before or had horses when they were children, some people had never partnered around horses before. So for them, that was a massive step into the courage zone to do something new. And they were all incredibly successful. And as a team, this group of ladies actually blew me away with how effectively and how cohesively they worked together as a team. And it didn't matter on your level of experience. It was all about how you showed up in that moment and how you connected with your team members, and more importantly, connected with the horse in order to get the horse over a set of obstacles. In terms of understanding others, I think it's really important that we recognize that within the workplace, we can become very blinkered, very short-sighted. We think about the demands of our day jobs, and we can often fail to recognize the impact of what we're doing has on the rest of the organization. And that can both be a positive and negative impact. It can be that we decide to change something within our team, but we don't appreciate the ripple impact that has on the rest of the organization, and vice versa. My invitation to you as we're adopting this agile learners mindset is to really start thinking about what is the ratio of listening to talking that you do. Because when we're talking, we're rarely actually listening. We're rarely paying attention. And if you want to know more about paying attention and noticing in the workplace, I'd encourage you to listen to last week's podcast, where that was the topic, was all about noticing, listening, and paying attention. Because it's only when we stop talking and we really start listening that do we create these opportunities for learning. And I think listening is one of those skills. It's fascinating to me. Listening, a skill that is never ever taught in school. Who teaches us how to listen? And yet it's one of the most important skills in business, being able to really listen 110% to what the other person is saying by giving them your full attention. Most of us are going through life hearing what's going on, but not fully listening to what is going on. So it's only when we really listen that we can connect and really understand what's going on for the other person, and therefore develop empathy with what their thinking is. And self-awareness. What often gets in the way of developing self-awareness is not a lack of drive or a development of skill, but a lack of clarity about what needs to be done differently to become more self-aware. So I would encourage you to create some practices to develop self-awareness, because this can make a real difference to learning agility. And you maybe want to start this by thinking about how you show up in situations that require your learning agility. What would be 3 words you want people to say about you in those meetings and in those moments? So this really starts helping you set an intent about how you want to show up. And then you can ask for feedback. And feedback is the fodder of champions. Feedback is so important because it helps us grow and develop. And we should never be afraid of asking for feedback. It's incredibly powerful when done well. And I know throughout my career, feedback that I've received has really helped shift the trajectory of where I've been going in my career. And in addition to feedback, you also want to think about personal reflection. Personal reflection is a great way to increase your self-awareness. But too often we are going through life at breakneck speed, and we never really spend this time to reflect on what we've learned, what we've experienced, and how we can do things differently. And that's always why at the end of any kind of training session or facilitation sessions I run, I'll reach out to people and ask them at the end, what's the biggest takeaway you've got from today, and why and how you're going to do things differently. This gives people a time period to reflect on what they've learned in that moment. Because if we never spend any time reflecting, we're just going through life at breakneck speed, and we never get in the moment to really process what's going on. So as an agile learner, we need to spend time really reflecting on what we've done, what were the impact it had, and then for how we can do things differently going forward. And three particular questions that are great for an agile learner to reflect on are: what strengths have been most useful for me today? Because we obviously want to leverage our strengths to the best of our ability. Who and what knowledge has helped me succeed? So recognizing the resources that are available, both in terms of people and information that can help us. And finally, how could we improve our impact in the situation? What could we do differently? So in conclusion, learning agility is an essential skill, I believe, for individuals and capability for organizations. But it doesn't happen by accident. To increase learning agility, you as a team member need to be aware of where you are today and the specific actions you're going to take to support that. You want to think about almost creating your own learning agility playbook, where you're really thinking about how you can develop your learning agility in order that you can have the most impact on your team and on the business that you're part of. Because as I said at the beginning, skills are diminishing over time as the working landscape changes. So one of the best soft skills that you can develop is being an agile learner, having this ability to learn new things, learn them quickly, and being willing and adaptable to step into new roles and new opportunities when they show up. Because the one thing I know to be true is that is absolutely what every boss is looking for. Team members that can be agile and flexible and step up to the mark when required, when things are changing and shifting rapidly around them. My invitation to you this week is: how are you going to become an agile learner? What are you going to be doing differently this week to improve your ability to learn and develop this really important capability that everyone right now in the workforce needs? So until next week, enjoy becoming an agile learner. And I'd really love to hear about what you have been learning and developing to become an agile learner within your organization so that you can create more impact and have more influence. Okay, have an amazing week. Until next time. Bye-bye.